Okay, so today we're diving deep into self-kindness. And wow, you guys sent a lot our way on this one. Clearly something you're ready to explore.
It's such an important topic.
It really is. And you know what strikes me? It's like we're often way kinder to everyone else than we are to ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
almost like we've been conditioned to believe that being hard on ourselves is the path to success.
Right. Like the more we criticize ourselves, the better we'll do.
Exactly. But what if it's actually the opposite? What if all that negative self-talk is actually holding us back?
Okay, now that's interesting because we'd never dream of talking to a friend the way we sometimes talk to ourselves.
Never. Imagine saying to a friend, you messed up again, you're such a failure.
Yeah.
It's just not something we'd do.
Not unless we wanted to lose that friend.
Right. And yet we subject ourselves to that kind of inner beatdown all the time.
So how do we break that cycle? What does self-kindness really look like in action? Because it's got to be more than just, bubble baths and face masks.
It is. It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's about treating yourself with the same compassion and understanding you'd offer a friend going through the same thing.
Okay, so it's about shifting that whole dynamic.
Yes. It's about recognizing that you are worthy of kindness regardless of your accomplishments or your failures.
That's a big one because so often we tie our self-worth to our achievements.
Exactly. And that's where self-esteem can be tricky.
Yeah.
It can feel really good when you're hitting your goals and checking things off your list. But what happens when you make a mistake or fall short?
Your self-esteem takes a nosedive.
Exactly. And that's why self-kindness is so crucial. It's about recognizing your inherent worth no matter what.
I remember one of the conversations we looked at, someone was really beating themselves up over a mistake at work. And they were like, I would never talk to a colleague this way, so why am I talking to myself like this?
This is so common, though, isn't it? We tend to be our own harshest critics.
So true. So if self-kindness is about recognizing our inherent worth, regardless of outcomes, what happens then? Does that mean we just let ourselves off the hook for everything?
Not at all. In fact, and this is what's so fascinating, research shows that self-compassion actually leads to greater motivation and growth.
Wait, really? So being kinder to ourselves actually helps us achieve more?
Exactly. It's like when you're not constantly beating yourself up, you create space to learn and grow. It's like you're freeing up mental energy that was previously stuck in that cycle of self-criticism.
And using it to move forward instead.
Exactly. And when you know that your worth isn't on the line every time you try something new, you're more likely to take risks and embrace challenges.
Which ultimately leads to more growth and, yeah, probably more success too.
Right. It's like that saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Self-compassion gives you the courage to keep shooting your shot even when you miss a few.
I love that. So we've talked about how self-criticism can hold us back. What are some other signs that we might need a dose of self-kindness in our lives? What are some red flags to watch out for?
Well, that relentless perfectionism is a big one. Setting impossibly high standards for yourself and then beating yourself up when you inevitably don't meet them.
Ugh, yeah.
Yeah.
Been there, done that, didn't get the t-shirt.
Right. It's a recipe for burnout.
Yeah.
And honestly, it robs you of the joy of the journey. Like you get so caught up in being perfect that you forget to actually enjoy the process.
It's so true. And then there's the whole comparison trap, which, let's be real, is almost impossible to avoid in the age of social media.
Oh, absolutely. Social media can be a self-compassion minefield.
Because you're constantly bombarded with everyone else's highlight reel.
Exactly. And it's easy to forget that those perfectly curated feeds don't tell the whole story. Everyone has their struggles, their insecurities, their moments of self-doubt.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of self-kindness and how to recognize when we're not practicing it. Now, for the part I'm most excited about, the how-to. What are some practical things we can do to cultivate more self-compassion in our daily lives?
Well, one of the most powerful practices is something called mindful self-awareness.
Mindful self-awareness. Okay, I'm intrigued, but break it down for me. What does that actually look like?
It's about learning to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment. So instead of getting swept away by that inner critic, you simply notice it. Oh, there's that negative thought again. Interesting.
So you're not trying to suppress those thoughts or pretend they're not there. You're just creating some distance between you and the thought.
Exactly. It's like hitting the pause button on that negative self-talk spiral before it really takes hold.
I like that. Okay, what else?
Another technique that came up a lot in the conversations you shared is something called self-compassion breaks.
Self-compassion breaks. Tell me more.
Okay, so picture this. You're a totally crazy day. Everything's going wrong. You're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. Instead of just powering through and ignoring those feelings, you hit pause. Take a few deep breaths. Acknowledge what you're feeling. Maybe say to yourself, this is really hard right now. It's okay to feel stressed. Everyone goes through this.
It's like giving yourself permission to be human.
Yes. And then offer yourself some words of kindness and support, just like you would to a friend who is struggling. You might say, you're doing the best you can, or I'm here for you.
I love that. Even just hearing you say those words, I can feel my shoulders relaxing a little.
Right. It's amazing how powerful a little self-compassion can be.
Okay, so mindful self-awareness, self-compassion breaks. What else can we add to our self-kindness toolkit?
Well, let's talk about the power of positive affirmations.
Yes. Those came up a lot in these conversations. How do they work? Are you supposed to just look in the mirror and tell yourself you're awesome?
You can if that works for you.
Yeah.
But it's really about consciously replacing those negative self-talk scripts with more empowering and positive ones.
So instead of I'm such a screw-up, it would be
I'm learning and growing, or I'm capable of figuring this out, or even just I am worthy.
So you're basically rewiring your brain for self-compassion one affirmation at a time.
Exactly. And it sounds simple, but it can be incredibly effective.
Yeah. Okay, what about journaling? I know a lot of people find journaling helpful. How can we use journaling to cultivate more self-compassion? So how does journaling for self-compassion actually work? Like, what do you write about?
Well, think of it like this. At the end of the day, take a few minutes to check in with yourself, like a little debrief with your inner critic.
Okay, can see that.
But here's the key. You're not just rehashing all the ways you messed up. You're bringing a more compassionate and understanding perspective to those experiences.
So how do I do that?
Imagine you're talking to a close friend who's going through the same thing. What would you say to them? How would you offer support?
That's a good point. I'd be way more understanding and encouraging with a friend.
Exactly. So try writing from that place of compassion. Write about what happened, the thoughts and feelings that came up, and then rewrite those internal scripts with more kindness.
So it's like giving myself a compassionate redo.
Exactly. And you might be surprised at how much that simple shift in perspective can change how you feel.
I can see that. Okay, so we've covered mindful self-awareness, self-compassion breaks positive affirmations, journaling. What else? Is there anything we can be doing in those moments when we're really struggling?
Well, don't underestimate the power of physical acts of kindness. It's easy to forget that self-care is a form of self-compassion.
Okay, so you mean like actually doing nice things for yourself, not just thinking nice thoughts.
Exactly. Taking a warm bath, going for a walk in nature, cooking yourself a healthy meal. These small acts of self-care can have a huge impact on how you feel. It's about treating yourself with the same consideration you'd give to someone you love.
That makes sense. So let's say you're hit with a big setback at work, something that really shakes your confidence. How would you apply these self-kindness techniques in that moment?
Well, first, that mindful self-awareness would kick in. You'd notice that wave of self-criticism. But instead of letting it drag you under, you'd simply acknowledge it. Okay, I'm feeling insecure and scared right now. That's understandable given what just happened.
So you're creating some space between you and those negative thoughts, instead of getting totally swept away by them.
Exactly. Then, instead of spiraling into a shame pit of self-doubt, you might try a self-compassion break. Find a quiet space if you can take a few deep breaths. Remind yourself that everyone makes mistakes. Even the most successful people in the world have setbacks.
It's about normalizing those experiences instead of judging yourself for them.
Exactly. And then offer yourself some words of kindness. Maybe put your hand on your heart and say, I'm here for you. We'll get through this together.
And then maybe later on you could journal about the experience and rewrite that negative script with more compassion.
Exactly. It's all about building that muscle of self-kindness so that it becomes your default mode instead of that inner critic.
That's so powerful. You've given us so much to think about today. From recognizing when we're being unkind to ourselves to practical tips for cultivating more self-compassion. But before we wrap up, I'm curious, what are some of the long-term benefits of all this? Like, why is self-kindness so important in the grand scheme of things?
That's a great question. And luckily, there's a ton of research on this.
Yeah.
The findings show that self-compassion is linked to a whole host of benefits, like increased self-esteem, reduced anxiety, greater resilience. It can even lead to greater life satisfaction overall.
Wow, so it's not just about feeling better in the moment, it's about creating a more fulfilling and joyful life overall.
It really is. And here's another beautiful ripple effect. When you're kinder to yourself, you naturally become kinder and more compassionate towards others.
Oh, I love that. So it's not selfish at all. It actually makes the world a better place.
Precisely. It's a win-win.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive into the power of self-kindness. We've learned that it's not about being perfect or letting ourselves off the hook. It's about embracing our imperfections with open arms and recognizing that we are worthy of love and compassion just as we are. As you go about your day, remember what we've talked about today. Challenge that inner critic. Offer yourself some grace and try one of these techniques. You might be surprised at how much a little self-kindness can change your life. Until next time, deep divers.